Hello, my name is Dale Maley. Today we're going to talk about what I think is a rather interesting project. It's the making a LED lighted display box for what is a 1,000-year-old spider using a stained glass panel. So as you'll see as I go through the video, I designed a stained glass panel. Also came up with a design for the LED lighted display box. I have always been fascinated by the Cahokia Mounds, which are located in Illinois just outside of St. Louis. Many, many years ago, this was a very prospering Native American city. They're not sure it could have had as many as 40,000 people living in it. And in that era, it would have been the largest city on the planet. And as you can see here on the far right is the huge, what they call Monk's Mound. And they think the chieftain lived on the top of the mound to be closer to the gods in the sky. And you see a wooden fence barricade going all the way around it. And it's fascinating to think that a town of 30 or 40,000 people existed about 1,000 years ago. At one point, all the people disappeared, and even today, scientists are still trying to figure out why did all the people leave. In a burial at Cahokia Mounds, people found many artifacts, including this one here, which was about a 3-inch diameter shell, and someone painted it with the image of a spider. Now this was hung from your neck as a pendant, and a spider does not have a center cross as shown here, and people theorize that maybe that cross is to represent fire. Now here's a photograph of two different types of pendants found in these old Native American sites. The one on the left is actually a woodpecker, and the one on the right is the spider one, and they've estimated it was made between 1200 and 1500 AD, and that particular one came from Cahokia. The spider symbol has also been found in other locations such as Dixon Mounds in Illinois. Native Americans worshiped the spider, particularly the type of spider that would make the concentric rings on its web. And there's many species of what they call orb web or orbital web spiders. Here's one example of an orbital web spider. I was fascinated when I saw the clamshell pendant with a spider painted on it. And I got the idea, I wonder if I could convert that small 3-inch pendant up to, say, a 12-inch round stained glass panel. So I copied the 1,000-year-old design of the spider on the shell and imported that into my drafting program. And then I magnified it from 3 inches up to about 12 inches. And then I went through and tried to convert it to a stained glass design. And although my stained glass version is not a perfect replication of the 1,000-year-old spider, it's pretty close. I had to leave a few things out, like on the head of the spider, at the top, you can see 2 eyes with 5 dots. And on the original, it has what looks like a nose or a triangle. Well, in glass, you cannot cut a triangle because the glass will break. And if you make a straight line through the center of the head, then you wipe out the middle of the 5 dots. So I chose to leave that triangle off. For the dots, I decided to use black paint, and then also for the yellow dots, use yellow paint, and we'll see that in a moment. Rather than a square box wood frame for this project, since we have a round stained glass panel, I decided to make an 8-sided or octagon wood box to hold the LED lighting system. For this round stained glass panel, I decided for the outside border to use lead, and that lead is in such a shape that it fits right around the glass. But then for the glass pieces themselves, rather than put lead around each or through each joint, I decided to use the copper foil method, where you wrap each piece all the way around with copper foil. Then you're all done, you solder it. At this point here, I've got started on the project, and I've got the two outer light brown rings completed. You can see the pencil up there, number 2 pencil, to give you an idea of the scale. Now at this point in the project, I have the two outer brown rings done with glass, and I've got the bottom right hand quadrant. I have that glass completed as well, as you can see in the photograph. The pieces that needed the Pebeo paint, I put the paint on the pieces and then put the pieces in the oven to bake them. When I bought the Pebeo paint, I bought an assortment kit with about 5 different colors. Here's the kit with the little bottles inside. The instructions are to bake the paint on the glass for 300 degrees F for 35 minutes. One important thing is to remember to put the paint on and bake the piece before you put the piece into the whole stained glass panel. You cannot make the panel all complete and then put the paint on and stick the panel in the oven. And I accidentally did that one of the first times I was using this paint. And what happens is it melts all the lead that you put on, all you soldered on, and really ruins your project. So set those pieces aside that need the paint once you get them cut, and then paint them up and take the individual pieces and bake them in the oven. Then you can foil them and put them into your panel. So here's what the stained glass panel looked like when I got everything soldered up and scrubbed off with soapy water. And then I applied the black patina fluid to change all these silvery solder joints, silvery color looking, over to black. And what that does, your eye will tend to go towards the shiny solder and notice a lot of defects and not notice the glass. But if you make the solder black, it's just amazing. Your eyes kind of forget about the soldering part of it, and then your eyes only focus on the color. So at this point, the panel, stained glass panel, is complete, and we're ready to build the wood box for the LED lighting system. Now here's what they call an exploded view of the LED lighting system. On the left-hand side, that'll be the front of the box. That's an octagon frame or 8-sided frame made out of 3/4 inch pine. And then the hole in that front frame is just smaller than the outside diameter of the stained glass. Then stained glass will go up against the front, but you need something to hold it in place. So what I did was use some 3/16 inch thick Luan plywood, they call it, and cut that diameter to exactly match the stained glass. I left a little bit of clearance in there for expansion and contraction of the panel, and that kind of holds it in position. And then you'll see the second red piece behind it. Now that one also has the inner diameter would actually match the front one, and you squeeze those together by screwing them to the front, and that holds the stained glass panel in perfect position. Behind that, you'd have the 8-sided main box frame shown in gray, and then when you're all done, I used a piece of that same 3/16 inch thick Luan and screwed it on the back of the assembly. First thing I had to do was to glue up several boards to make the front octagon shaped front cover. So here are the boards glued up on the left. Once they're dried, I'll cut a circle, or an 8-sided top, and I'll also scroll saw out the inner circle. And now on the right hand side, that's the 8 pieces that make up the main frame. To glue and clamp those together, I used a string and nail method. Not very high tech, but it works. You just wrap 2 or 3 rounds of string and tie it, and then take a big 16-penny nail and wind it up to tighten up the string, and then let it sit a couple hours and it'll be completed. Once you have the pine box all made, the next step is to paint it. And for the outside of this, I chose a very simple gray color, as you can see. But on the inside of the box, you need to paint that white, and that'll reflect the LED light around the box and help to light your panel better. Also on the back cover, which isn't shown here, that the inside of that needs to be painted white as well. Once the paint's dry, you can install the LED strip light, which comes in a roll, as you can see laying on the table. It has sticky tape to hold it on, but I don't trust that to last for years. So what I do is use a plastic clip with a screw, and every so often I'll put the clip and the screw in. That way, if the sticky tape fails, the LED light strip will still be held in the proper position for years to come. Now here's the completed project with no electricity applied to the LED lighting unit. And I always put my coffee cup in here because people like to know the scale of the project. So that gives you an idea of how big the finished project is. Now here's a photograph of a finished project with electricity applied to the LED lighting system. When I installed the strip, after I completed 2 turns around the inside of the box, I cut off the excess LED strip. And there's directions on where to cut that tape in the right place, which I actually read and followed. Anyway, there's a dimmer unit provided with this, so it turned out I like the medium dimmer setting about the best. It has plenty of light, so I did not have to use full strength. I just used about the medium setting. The other thing I've learned with these light boxes is photographs or videos do not really do them proper justice. Your eye sees much differently than what the digital camera does. So you really have to see it in person to appreciate how wonderful these lighted panels look. Some of my closing thoughts on this project. While I was making it, it was kind of neat to think that here I am making a modified version of some artwork that was done by a Native American 1,000 years ago. And I think it really came out pretty neat. This was my 3rd LED lighted box, so most of the development work to figure out how to do it was done on the 2 previous projects. So this one went pretty smoothly. And I plan on using this same basic box design for other stained glass panels. The woodworking portion of this is relatively straightforward if you're an experienced woodworker, and it's relatively easy and quick to make. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks very much for watching.